WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episodes. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place. WV Uncommon Place. This podcast is a variety podcast that houses numerous series to cover mental health, empowerment, podcast framework, and various intimate theories to get to know the hosts. Along with occasional movies reviews and dives in pop culture with our event podcast episodes. The Uncommon Place digs into bringing guests on that stories don't fit the mold and are very different. WV stands for the great state of West Virginia, and every quarter we cover something in West Virginia. Stacey and myself, JR, are your hosts, so please come along for this venture to our Uncommon Place.
Howdy, this is JR from West Virginia Uncommon Place. I've come in here today to talk to you guys about what we got going on in the near future. We have quite a bunch of different shows that are going to be coming out. I want to thank everybody that's been listening this month of March for our podcast shows. We were very excited to do those. Joseph M. Leonard, having him on, Jackie Elliott having her on too. Her episode is very tough and spiritual and has a lot going on there. Another episode I'm going to be highly excited about, you guys will hear later on. Heather Hutchinson, she's blonde, a lot to go there. Episode Letter to My Dad, that one's really up there for me. Tom Shea, Art Through Mikhail's Eyes, The Cost, the Price, the Return, and that's right there. But what I want to talk about is the Podcasting for Podcaster series. We have some episodes. Affiliate marketing is the first episode that we're going to start off with, and this is going to start on April 15th. Now, we have shows prior to that, but I want to specifically talk about these. Podcasting for Podcaster sponsorship on April 22nd, and we are going to have Podcasting for Podcasters marketing recap on May 6th. Now, in between that time, we have more shows coming out, and then we also have more shows coming in our Y series. The next one is going to be Harry Potter Y. That one will be out on May 6th also. That's interesting, a double for double. Then we have various guests. Definitely excited about Marsha Vansberg coming on. Then Success is Silent comes out. Jesse Fisco comes out. Michaela Cox, which is an episode from the Vault, and Laura Girepi is another episode from the Vault. So, going forward, we have another podcast, which is Spare Under Reviews, where Stacey takes over the reins and has her own podcast, which I'm a co-star on. I'm not even the real host of it. And she has different reviews. We brought back a few from West Virginia Uncommon Place because they were really highly downloaded and liked by people, so we put a few over there. And also later on, Podfade 2 will come out on May 11th. That is that is one part. And then we have an episode from our Unfiltered series from Podfest with Adopt Twins that comes out on May 25th. So there's a lot going on there. Then we'll go over into the month of the end of May and the beginning of June, and we'll cover a lot of the Nintendo 64 games, Star Wars Shadow of the Empire, and then I start covering in a little series of Nintendo 64 games that matter, which would be Mega Man 64, GoldenEye, also cover WCW NWO World Tour, and Toxic Crusader comes out, and then so many more episodes that we're digging into. And the reason that I'm giving this early information is because, like with any podcast, you want to have a direction, you want to know where the shows are going, and how, we're keeping things on pace. And we actually go back to recording for the Thursday show, which will be March 21st. So that's next Tuesday from March 16th. And basically what we're doing from now on is Thursday, that's a solid life coach, mental health awareness days. And ever so often, episodes that are not curated, will come out on Tuesday sometimes. Like Mr. Leonard's episode that came out this past Tuesday, we didn't have anything to curate with it. It was something that sat alone. So that's why that episode came out like that. And the same thing with Heather Hutchinson's episode. That's why it's coming out the way that it's coming out too, because I didn't have anything to group with it. And we try to curate things to make sense so that it's not necessarily linear, but we want the show to make sense. Like, I don't want you to have to, like, when you listen to it, you know on Thursday it's going to be a certain type of show. So if that show's not what you want to hear, you know on Saturday we have these special series going on, different little things like that. So we're trying to keep up with that kind of stuff and keep going in that mode and method. And I want to thank you all as valued listeners. And inside these episodes, we're going to talk just a little bit about the podcasting for podcasters. The reason that I'm doing that is because of the trial and error and the things that I've went through. I'm not better than anybody else in podcasting, but I do go the extra miles. I do go do my research. I go do all that I can do to make sure that I am basically on top of my game. I try to find out everything that's going on. I reach out to people. I try to see what's new inside the industry. I'm not worried about just the quality of my show. I'm worried about all facets of it, because you can make a quality show and you can be a hobbyist, or you can be someone that wants to evolve your show to make some type of money in some avenue. And if that's the case for you on that one, not the hobbyist, but on the other one, then it's more than just putting out a podcast. It's deeper than putting out show notes. It's knowing who and what and where and why everything's going on around you the way it's going. Because this landscape has really changed since when I very first started podcasting. Because when I first started podcasting, I'm not going to say it was a more friendlier place, but so many people were in that COVID feeling, and they were locked up for COVID and stuff. So everybody was just doing a podcast, and now everybody's moved away from it. They're either listening to shows, or they're doing something else, or they've returned back to a semi-charmed life. And in those instances, podcasting has evolved. And then the people that were with me, so many people have pod faded. And pod fading is not a concept that people want to really talk about in big detail. So I'll say it like this in big detail and very simple. I did one episode on pod fade, then pod fade 2 I did, and then there'll eventually be a third episode of pod fade, because there's more factors into pod fade. And pod fading is deeper than just you leaving completely. It's where these people take breaks and leave their podcast, because it's statistics, they change ever so often, but the lifespan of a podcast is not very long in consideration to, when someone takes a hobby and they start making trains or building trains, and they keep doing that for years and years and on. And it's different when you take a break from that, because this is a media. And taking a break from this, it's fine if you have the caseload, or the batches, I like to call it, of episodes. Because like I said, everybody knows I have tons of episodes. So I made sure that instead of sitting on all this stuff, I started releasing more and more stuff to get it out there to see what works and what doesn't work. And that is the inside edge and the difference in me and other podcasters, I believe. Because I look to see what's going to happen while it's happening. So if I know that this episode, for instance, we did astrology episodes where people really dig the astrology. So at some point I'm going to bring back astrology, but I've got to make it make sense when to bring it back. So that's what I look for in those kind of trends. And for instance, the life coaches catch on very highly at certain points of the year. Grief coaches catch on at certain points of the year. People with just amazing stories catch on all the time. Interviewing authors, I will say I love musicians, but musicians being on my show, that's one thing that I've had to actually turn away from, because, and this is just something for podcasters, I had to turn away from them because they did not bring, it was more me showcasing them, and it's hard to make someone that's already listening to my show want to go further and listen to music. I don't know how to do that concept. There's so many podcasts for that, so I'll leave that arena to those guys and ladies and whoever else that does that. Now going forward with the Y series, we're going to go deeper into video games, because I got Ys for Rockstar, for 2K games. I've got Ys for Activision. I've even got Ys for Sega, because there's some things that have gone on, and everybody knows I'm a nostalgic video game collector. There's some things that have gone on that just rock my mind and just bother me. So we'll go deeper and deeper into that. Make sure you all, if you like the podcast and you like what's going on, check out our other podcasts. And then the third podcast that we have is West Virginia Commonplace Presents a Collection. It's where we take the older episodes from West Virginia Commonplace, and we put those episodes actually out. And we put those out in a fashion so that you can hear the old episodes and so you don't have to go look through a lot of episodes, because we got over 280 plus episodes, almost up to 300. We're almost there. And I just want to make sure that we're reaching everybody that we can. And then some more of the stuff with affiliate marketing and different stuff like that. I challenge the idea that these social media gurus and gurus in general on some of the things that they do, because I've seen where I've had failure and I've seen where I've had success. And a lot of it has not came from advice that people pay money for. So that's kind of like I'm not against these people because I enjoy them. Heck, I'm friends with some of them. But I think that you have to meet everybody at their Facebook. And when I've said that so many times, I've said it just like this. If your Facebook is LinkedIn, I'm going to meet you at LinkedIn at some point. Doesn't mean I'm going to make it an everyday thing. Doesn't make me a proficient person in it. But what I will do when I am there, sending information to you and getting you informed on what's going on with the podcast, you will definitely have a chance to see what in the scope of my podcast you like and what pertains to you. And even on Pinterest, I'll put those pins up because I want those people that are on Pinterest to say, hey, this is a podcast. I might like this episode. It has a narrative when I look at the pin. So bam. And then Tumblr, that builds up my SEO. That's where the bots are. That's one thing that I like to build up. So, just all that kind of stuff and all the stuff that goes on there. That's what I want to still keep doing. And instead of helping people and giving advice, I'm just giving suggestions nowadays. I'm not out here to help anyone or anything like that. If you need that kind of help, you can reach out to me and I will definitely help you. But outside of that, I want to thank you all for paying attention to all three podcasts. Normal West Virginia Commonplace. West Virginia Commonplace presents the collection, and our newest one, Sparrows Under Review, the review podcast where Stacey and I cover numerous topics, and I bring the logic and she brings the chaos. Once again, I am JR. Thank you for tuning in, and everybody enjoy life.
Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at onecommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode. Please follow WV Uncommonplace on Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, TikTok, where we have some great content, Facebook, LinkedIn. Hit up the merch store at onecommonplace.square.site. Join the email list from the website, and rate, subscribe, and give feedback from your favorite podcatcher. And lastly, thanks for listening, and tune into the next episode.